My sister raised her champagne glass and said, "To the most extraordinary only child." My mom toasted. My dad smiled. And right then, I realized they had erased me on purpose, in public, and calmly. So, I stood up, reached into my bag, and gave a $50 000 gift to someone else at the table. Not to cause a scene, not to hurt them, but because they had no idea what I'd planned. My name is Sarah Thompson. I'm 33, freelance content strategist based out of Seattle. The quiet one, the invisible daughter, not the golden child. That role belongs to Amanda, my older sister PR director. Instagram perfect. Everyone's favorite. Growing up, I was the one who made dinner when no one asked, who fixed the printer, who remembered to feed the dog, the kind of kid who got thanked with a sigh. And all my life, I told myself, maybe next time, they'll see me. Turns out, you can stare someone straight in the face, and they'll still look through you. But what they didn't know was that I had already made a decision, and it was going to change everything. Before I take you through the night that finally broke the silence, before I show you how I turned years of erasure into one undeniable moment, please hit subscribe, give this video a like, and let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from your own family just to feel whole again? Because this is the story of the night I chose to be seen. And it didn't start with a dramatic toast. It started long before, in a quiet corner of a very loud family, where being overlooked wasn't an accident. It was tradition. When I say I wasn't surprised by the toast, I don't mean it didn't hurt. I mean, deep down, I saw it coming. Because that night was never really about celebrating both of their daughters. It was about putting Amanda on a pedestal. Again. And me. I was just there. Like a piece of furniture no one remembered buying. The venue itself was proof. It was exactly the kind of place my parents adored, dimly lit. Overpriced. Where the menu has no dollar signs, and the bread comes in geometric shapes. There were white roses on every table and a grand piano no one played. The kind of space that whispers, "Look how well we're doing." Even if no one's smiling. I got there 3 minutes early. Still, Amanda was already there, holding court, like always. Her hair was perfect. Makeup like she stepped out of a magazine. She wore a champagne-colored dress. Just enough shimmer to turn heads, but tasteful enough for Mom's approval. As soon as she saw me, she gave me that signature half-hug. Half-air kiss she reserves for holidays, fundraisers, and funerals. "You made it," she said, like I was someone who might have canceled last minute because I forgot how calendars work. I smiled, tight-lipped. Practiced? The kind of smile you wear when someone calls you the wrong name and you let it go. My mom hugged me too stiffly. My dad nodded like we were passing each other in a grocery store. And just like that, I was escorted to the far end of the table, next to a ficus, across from Amanda's new boyfriend, Greg. Or maybe Craig, who introduced himself twice and still got my name wrong. I didn't say anything. I didn't roll my eyes. Because that night, I had come with one very clear goal. Be the bigger person. After years of one-sided birthdays, last-minute cancellations, forgotten milestones, I had decided this was the night I would offer an olive branch. No speeches, no drama, just a quiet gesture. A peace offering I'd been preparing for months. I had worked hard, saved every spare dollar from freelance contracts. I skipped new clothes, passed on weekend trips, lived lean, because I wanted to give something meaningful, something that said, "I'm still here. I still care." Even after all the ways they'd made me feel like I didn't matter. That something was a check, more than a check. Really, it was a symbol. $50,000, neatly sealed in an ivory envelope. Corners worn soft from how many times I'd held it, doubting whether I should go through with it. I wasn't trying to impress them. I just wanted them to know I was still reaching out, still willing to be part of a family that never really had room for me. Dinner started with the usual polite murmurs. Amanda launched into a monologue about some national real estate conference she'd just spoken at. Mom and Dad leaned in like she was solving world hunger. When I shared that I'd landed a new long-term client, my biggest yet, Mom barely looked up from her wine and asked, "Do you get health benefits with that?" Dad didn't even look up. That stung. But again, I let it go. By the time appetizers came, I'd answered 2 questions, neither about me. One was from the waiter, still sparkling water. The other was Amanda's boyfriend. "So, you do TikTok, or what exactly is freelance?" I kept reminding myself. Just get through dinner. Then you give them the envelope. Then maybe something changes. But I should have known better. Because the toast came, and everything cracked open. Amanda stood up. Glass lifted. Smile activated. She thanked everyone for being there. Thanked our parents for raising her into the woman she is. Then came the line. And above all, I want to thank them for raising the most incredible only child anyone could ask for. That moment, it didn't feel like a slap. It felt like a confirmation that I was never in the photo to begin with. And here's the part that really got me. No one corrected her, not even a nervous laugh. No, wait. What about Sarah? No awkward throat clear. My mom just lifted her glass. My dad smiled. Camera ready. Amanda sat down, and my heart did something weird. It didn't break. It went still. Like it finally gave up waiting for recognition. You don't know how quiet a room can feel until the silence is about you, and everyone seems fine with that. That's when it hit me. The envelope in my purse. It didn't belong to them anymore. I had given them every chance. I had tried. And tried. And tried. But some people aren't asleep. They're just unwilling to open their eyes. And once I realized that, once I finally accepted I wasn't missing something they were, I stopped trying to win their love and started planning how to give my thanks to the people who actually earned it. Looking back now, I don't know why I thought things might be different that night. Maybe because I'd done everything right. Maybe because I brought a gift instead of a grudge. But here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. In some families, love is conditional. And if you're not the favorite, you don't just feel left out. You feel erased. That wasn't the first time they pretended I didn't exist. It was just the first time they'd done it with wine glasses raised and a room full of witnesses. Growing up, I learned early how to keep quiet. Amanda was loud, sparkly, magnetic. I was the kid who cleaned up the mess and stayed out of the way. She got praise for turning in homework late with style. I got silence for straight A's. One time, I won a regional short story contest in middle school. My mom barely looked at the trophy. My dad said, writing's not a real job. Right. Amanda sang in a school play, once off key. But enthusiastic. They brought flowers. Took photos. Called her their star. I was in the front row. Clapping too. Like always. At 8, I asked for a bike for my birthday. Amanda got a brand new pink one with a sparkly helmet and rainbow streamers. I got a hand-me-down from a neighbor's kid. Still had mud on it. But I smiled. Said thank you. Tried to be grateful. 'Cause I thought, if I'm good enough, they'll see me. So I babysat. Did the dishes without being asked. Brought home report cards full of A's. Helped Mom meal prep every Sunday night. And still, nothing. When Amanda got a B+ in history, they threw a You Survived finals party. I graduated valedictorian. They forgot to book a restaurant. We ended up at a drive-thru. That should have been the moment I gave up. But I didn't. Because kids don't give up on their parents. They just shrink a little more each time. Until one day, there's barely anything left. In college, when I got the flu and couldn't afford cold medicine, I texted my parents. Mom replied with a thumbs-up emoji. 2 hours later, my Uncle Joe showed up at my dorm with soup and cough drops. No speech. No guilt. Just thought you might need this. That was the first time I realized love doesn't always look like big gestures. Sometimes, it's just showing up. Joe and Marie, my mom's older sister, and her husband were never loud people. They never tried to take over. They just made room for me. Quietly. When I was little, they'd babysit me whenever my parents needed a break, which was often. I remember being 5, clutching a juice box, and overhearing my mom say, "She's just so picky. Good luck getting her to eat." At their house, they let me pick the movie. Marie made popcorn and sat beside me during the scary parts. When I spilled juice on their white rug and burst into tears, expecting to be yelled at, Marie knelt down, smiled, and said, "It's just a carpet. Sweetheart, you're worth more than that." I didn't even know that kind of response was possible. As I got older, it didn't stop. When I landed my first real client after graduation, I called Marie before I called my own mom. Because by then, I already knew what my parents would say. Does it come with dental? As if success only counts if it fits neatly into their idea of stability. Joe and Marie never asked for updates, but they always noticed things. Marie would email me the week of big deadlines. "Thinking of you. You've got this." Joe would send silly cat videos with subject lines like mandatory study break. They didn't ask for credit. They didn't expect praise. They just made me feel like I mattered. Like I was enough, even when I was overwhelmed, or messy, or tired. And the night of that anniversary dinner, they were seated all the way in the back. Like filler guests. Like afterthoughts. Just like me. It wasn't a mistake. My parents knew who they were seating where. Amanda and her boyfriend were front and center. Greg whatever had barely known our family for 3 months, and he got a better seat than the people who'd raised me when my parents couldn't be bothered. And still, Joe and Marie clapped at Amanda's toast. Still smiled. Still kind. Still trying to believe the best. And that's when it hit me. I'd brought the envelope with the intent to give it to my parents. As a gesture. As a beginning. But what had they ever given me? Really? Conditional approval. Dismissive compliments. A seat by the ficus. Joe and Marie had given me something far more valuable. Kindness. Space. The kind of love that doesn't need applause to be real. And as Amanda basked in the glow of her only child moment, as Mom and Dad nodded like proud campaign managers, I looked down at the envelope in my purse. $50,000. Saved slowly. Intended as a bridge. But I realized, you can't build a bridge to people who pretend you don't exist. So I made a decision. Not a dramatic one. No rage. No wine throwing. Just clarity. I was done begging to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to say thank you. To the ones who already saw me. I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. I stood. And when I walked to the back of the room, I wasn't walking away from my family. I was walking toward it. You'd think the breaking point would be loud, explosive. But mine came in total silence. No one at the table knew what had just happened inside me. Not my sister. Not my parents. Not even my aunt and uncle. But I knew. And that was enough. It wasn't rage that made me stand up. It wasn't pride either. It was something softer, sadder. The quiet realization that I'd spent 33 years waiting for people to choose me, when the truth was they never would. I reached into my bag, fingers brushing the envelope one last time. The paper was warm from where it had rested near my leg all evening, like it had been listening too. And then I stood. Not a dramatic rise. No glass clinking. No raised voice. Just a steady, quiet movement. A pause in the room. A shift in energy. I walked around the table, past Amanda, whose smile flickered when she saw me, past my mother, who blinked like she wasn't sure if I was about to make a toast or cause a scene, past my dad, whose expression didn't change, and straight to the back, to Joe and Marie. They looked up, confused. My aunt's hand lifted halfway to her chest. My uncle tilted forward, concerned. I handed them the envelope. Just said, "This is for you." No speech. No drama. Just truth. Then I turned, walked back to my seat, sat down, folded my napkin, and waited. The silence that followed felt bottomless. No one moved. No one asked what was in the envelope. No one said a word. Amanda's face was frozen. My mom tilted her head slightly, trying to find a version of the story where this could still make sense to her. My dad's jaw tightened. And Joe, he just held the envelope like it was ticking. But I didn't offer any explanation. Because for once, I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to make anyone feel better. I wasn't smoothing it over. I had made a choice. And whether they understood it or not, I wasn't going back. Later that night, I sat in my apartment alone. The phone stayed dark. No texts. No missed calls. No fallout. Not yet. But around 9 the next morning, I got a message from Marie. Just a single question mark. She didn't even open the envelope. She wanted to be sure it wasn't a mistake. I waited an hour before calling. They answered on speaker. Marie's voice was quiet. "We haven't opened it." I smiled, even though they couldn't see it. "You can..." Joe cleared his throat. "Are you sure?" "We don't want to." "You're not crossing any line," I said gently. "You never have." I heard the envelope tear. Then rustling. Then nothing. Not even a gasp. Just a pause. Like something sacred had landed between them. I had transferred $50. 000 into a joint account in their names. No conditions. No strings. Just a gesture. A thank you. A permanent, tangible version of all the moments they showed up when no one else did. Marie's voice cracked. Sarah, we didn't do anything to deserve this." "Yes, you did," I said. "You loved me," Joe said, quieter than I'd ever heard him. "You don't know what this means to us." "I do," I said. "That's exactly why I did it." It was supposed to end there. Clean, quiet. One final act of recognition. A private thank you with no expectation. But of course, nothing stays quiet for long in families like mine. 5 hours later, my phone lit up. 3 missed calls. First from my mom, then my dad, then Amanda. I didn't answer. The voicemail from my mom was sharp. "You made your point." That was childish. "Call me back," Amanda texted. "Wait." That was real. Like, the money. "You gave them 50 grand. Are you serious?" Another one followed. "You embarrassed all of us. You were being dramatic. And then, they didn't even raise you." That last one, I laughed. Really laughed. The kind that only happens when something so absurd finally collapses under its own weight. I didn't respond. There was nothing to explain. But I knew what was coming. Because in families like mine, once you break the pattern, they don't ask why. They ask how to fix the narrative. Sure enough, my dad texted the next morning. A rare thing. He avoids texting like it's emotionally contagious. Sarah, we need to talk. Face to face. Not like this. Which roughly translates to, I don't know how to spin this yet. Give me a chance. They weren't trying to understand. They were trying to control the fallout. But they couldn't. Because I'd taken the one thing they always believed they had full ownership of. My loyalty. And I gave it to someone who'd actually earned it. And when they realized they couldn't get it back, that's when the real storm began. Not just whispers, but a campaign. And trust me, they weren't done trying to make me the villain. They didn't take it quietly. Of course not. People like my parents, people who've built their image around perfection, they don't just let things go. They spin them. They campaign. They do everything except look inward. It started with my mom. She posted a long, vague Facebook status the next morning, not naming names. But she didn't have to. It was layered with spiritual quotes, passive-aggressive scripture, and just enough weaponized humility to make herself look like the wounded party. It breaks a mother's heart when her child is led astray by people pretending to love them. She wrote, "Family isn't about money. It's about loyalty. We did our best. Sometimes, evil wears a smile." The comments poured in. Old church friends, retired neighbors, random acquaintances. You raised your daughters, right? You don't deserve this. Praying for your family. And my favorite, people forget who carried them when they were helpless. One day they'll regret it. I didn't respond, but I wasn't unaffected either. My hands actually shook when I read it, because even though I knew it was performative, even though I knew it wasn't true, it still hurt to be painted as some lost greedy daughter corrupted by others. Then came the low blow. My Aunt Marie called me 2 days later. Her voice sounded shaky, like someone had knocked the wind out of her. She'd received an anonymous email. No subject line, no signature, just screenshots, old text messages. From me. From years ago. Messages I'd sent in moments of exhaustion, complaining, venting, saying things like, "Sometimes I wish they wouldn't hover so much. Marie means well, but I just need space this week. Joe's advice is a lot right now." Out of context, stripped of tone, framed to look like betrayal. I didn't have to ask who sent it. Amanda didn't sign it, but she left just enough breadcrumbs to make it obvious. I felt sick. Not because of the messages I had every right to need space sometimes, but because I knew Marie would take them to heart. And she did. She didn't accuse me. She didn't guilt trip me. She simply said, "I know you didn't mean it that way, but it still hurt to see." That honesty wrecked me. Not because she was mad, but because she was telling the truth. No performance, no spin, just reality. And that's something I'd never had with my own parents. So I did what I hadn't done in years. I showed up with a box of pastries from her favorite bakery and a heart full of dread. I sat at their kitchen table, barely able to look her in the eye. "I'm sorry," I said, "for everything. For anything that made you question how much you mean to me." Marie didn't cry. She just reached over and held my hand. Joe poured coffee. No lectures. No awkward silences. Just presence. That's what love looks like. The kind that doesn't need to be proven. The kind that doesn't collapse under human moments. And in that moment, it clicked. This was why I gave them the money. Not because they were perfect, but because they were real. Because when I made mistakes, they didn't make me beg to stay. But my parents, they doubled down. A few days later, they showed up, unannounced, on my porch. My mom wore her reasonable blouse, the one she saves for hard conversations she's trying to frame as civil. My dad stood stiff beside her, like he was guarding some imaginary boundary. I didn't invite them in, just leaned on the doorframe and waited. "We'd like to come inside." My mom said, "No," I replied. She blinked like that wasn't an option. My dad squinted past me, trying to see into the living room. "You don't want to talk this through. You didn't seem interested in talking when you toasted your only child," I said. My mom exhaled, sharp and tight. It was a joke. No one laughed. "We didn't mean it like that." "Did you?" She turned to my dad, but he didn't answer. I crossed my arms. "You had all night to say something." "You didn't." My dad's posture stiffened. "You blindsided us." I almost laughed. That's rich coming from the people who cut me out with a smile. Then it came. The money. That $50,000, my mom said. Her voice pinched. "You were really going to give that to us." I said plainly. "And you gave it to them instead." She didn't say their names. Couldn't. "That money," she went on, "could have helped us. Your dad's medical bills. Paying off the car. Retirement." "I know," I said. "That's why I saved it." He stared at me, unblinking. "So what changed?" I smiled. Not cruelly, just honestly. "You toasted your only child." My mom looked away. My dad clenched his jaw. "So this is revenge?" "No, I said. "This is recognition." I gave my thanks to the people who earned it. "You're throwing away your family." "I'm finally choosing one." And they left. No slam door. Just a quiet click that somehow felt heavier than anything they said. But they weren't done. Amanda posted a photo the next day. My parents' wedding picture, framed in soft light. Captioned, "Some people only show up when they want applause. Real family shows up quietly." I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Because the next morning, Marie called again. "We've been getting messages," she said. "From your mom, your sister. They're trying to guilt us, saying we manipulated you." "You didn't." "I know that. I just hate this. We didn't want to be in the middle." "You're not," I told her. "You're right where you've always been. Beside me." She paused, then quietly said, "We're not going to cash it. The money. We don't need it. We can't accept it." "Yes, you can," I said. "Because I need you to. Because I can't go back in time and make it fair. But I can do this. I can say thank you properly." She sniffled. "You're going to make me cry." "Good," I said. I felt like I was the only one that night. I wasn't looking for approval anymore. I didn't need closure. What I found instead was peace. But the dust hadn't settled yet. Not even close. I thought that might be the end of it. That once the door clicked shut behind them, once Marie said she wouldn't cash the check, it would all quiet down. But in families like mine, silence isn't peace. It's preparation. The real blow came a week later. A number I didn't recognize popped up on my phone. I let it go to voicemail. It was my mom. Her voice, at first, was soft and trembling. "You've destroyed this family," she began. "You've broken your father's heart. Are you proud of yourself?" By the end of the message, the softness was gone. Just venom. Like all the guilt and rage she couldn't aim at herself had finally found a place to land. And yet, I didn't cry. Not this time. Because guilt only works when you still believe you're the problem. And I didn't. But they didn't stop there. Over the next few days, they tried pressuring Joe and Marie to return the money. They sent formal letters, claimed manipulation, hinted that I was unstable, said Marie had poisoned me against the family. They even suggested indirectly that I might have been coerced. It got so aggressive. Joe actually consulted a lawyer, just to make sure they were legally protected. When I offered to cover the cost, he refused. We don't take from family, he said, but we will accept gifts. He winked when he said it. And for the first time in weeks, I actually laughed. That winter, I didn't go to my parents' house, didn't check in, didn't send a card. Instead, I spent Christmas Eve curled up on Marie's couch. We wore pajamas, watched It's a Wonderful Life for the millionth time. Joe made hot chocolate and burned it a little, like always. Marie gave me a scarf she'd knit by hand, deep green, my favorite color. We didn't talk about the drama. We didn't have to, because when love is real, it doesn't need to prove itself every 5 minutes. At one point that night, Marie looked over at me. "Do you regret it?" she asked. I didn't even have to think.
No.
Because I didn't just walk away from a family. I walked toward one. It wasn't triumph I felt. It wasn't revenge. It was something simpler, something heavier. Relief. Like I'd finally stopped twisting myself into knots just to fit into a version of family that never had space for me. Eventually, the calls slowed down, then stopped. I heard through distant cousins that Amanda was telling her side at every holiday gathering, claiming I'd been brainwashed, that Joe and Marie had bought my loyalty, that I was unstable and going through some emotional phase. But I didn't care anymore, because their narrative didn't reach me. And for once, I wasn't trying to rewrite it. I was living a life they didn't get to comment on. I stayed off Facebook, didn't post updates, didn't respond when distant relatives sent concerned messages fishing for gossip. I just lived. Marie and I started having regular Sunday coffee dates. Joe taught me how to change a tire properly. They never brought up the money again. Not because it didn't matter, but because it didn't define us. One night, I was helping Marie sort through old photos. There was one of me at 10. Sitting on their porch with a juice box and tangled curls. She looked at it and smiled. "You always looked more at home here," she said. And I realized she was right. Even back then, even when I didn't know what it meant, I'd felt it. That sense of safety, of being wanted, not just tolerated. I'd spent so long clinging to the hope that my real family would change. That if I just tried hard enough, showed up enough, succeeded enough, they'd finally see me. But love doesn't have to be earned. And real family doesn't make you audition. What happened that night at the dinner wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. Because when I stood up and gave that envelope to the people who actually showed up, I wasn't making a scene. I was making a choice. And not just about money, about where my love would go, where my loyalty belonged, and where my future would grow. The thing is, I didn't just burn a bridge. I walked off one that had never been built for me to cross. And the people on the other side, they weren't waiting. They were already beside me, holding space, holding truth, holding love. I used to think the hardest part was letting go. But the truth, the hardest part is admitting you were never held to begin with. And now that I finally was, I had one last thing to say. Sometimes I still think about that night. The sound of Amanda's voice echoing through the room. The look on my mom's face when I handed the envelope to someone else. The way my dad clenched his jaw and didn't say a word. Those images used to keep me up at night. Now, they remind me of the moment I finally stopped apologizing for simply existing. I used to wonder, was I too harsh? Did I take it too far? Not the money part. That still feels right, deep in my bones, in a way that doesn't need defending. But the delivery, the silence I left them sitting in, the way I didn't give them a warning. Sometimes I lie awake asking myself, should I have done it in private? Should I have passed the envelope to Joe and Marie quietly after dinner? Without an audience? Would that have made it easier to digest? Would it have softened the blow? Or would it have just given them more room to rewrite the story? To act like none of it ever happened? Because if I've learned anything, it's this. People who rely on image will do anything to protect it. And I wasn't willing to let them hide behind politeness one more time. That night wasn't a stunt. It was a boundary. A line drawn. Not in anger, but in clarity. And maybe that's what scared them most. Not the act itself, but the fact that I did it calmly, with no yelling, no blame, just truth. Because people like them expect an explosion. It gives them something to point at. She's unstable. She's emotional. She's overreacting. But when you simply stand your ground, they don't know what to do. They can't twist calm. They can't weaponize quiet. And that's where I found my peace. Not in punishing them, but in refusing to keep performing for them. I used to believe family was something fixed, something you're born into and bound to forever. Now I know it's something you build, over time, with intention, with people who choose you back. Joe and Marie weren't perfect. They weren't flashy. They didn't fix me. But they saw me. They valued me. And they never once made me feel like I had to earn my seat at their table. That's what I gave $50,000 to. Not as payment, but as recognition. Because when you've spent your whole life being treated like an afterthought, being seen isn't a luxury. It's salvation. And I think that's why I'm sharing this now. Not because I need anyone to say I did the right thing, but because maybe someone out there needs to hear this. You are not selfish for walking away. You are not cruel for choosing peace. You are not dramatic for needing to feel safe. Even from your own family, some of us grow up believing love is earned through obedience, that we have to be easier, quieter, more convenient just to stay in the room. But the truth is, if someone only loves you when you're silent, that's not love. It took me 33 years to understand that. And now that I do, there's no going back. So, if you've ever found yourself shrinking to fit someone else's comfort, if you've ever left a dinner feeling like you were the ghost in the family photo, if you've ever questioned whether your pain was even real, let me be the one to tell you. It is. And you're not wrong for needing more. Because choosing yourself isn't betrayal. It's liberation. I'd really like to know what you think. Was I justified in how I handled it? Was there a better way to step away? Let me know in the comments, truly. I want to hear your story too. And if you've ever stood your ground like this, or if you're still trying to find the courage to do so, you are not alone. Please like, share, and subscribe if this resonated with you. And maybe send this to someone who needs a little reminder that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is enough.